flawless experts who have all the answers. That's not this podcast. Instead, we chat with professionals who love what they do, have wisdom to share, and can laugh at their own mistakes. I'm Mark, and I'm the host of the WorkPlay Solutions podcast. So let's laugh, learn, and discover the joy of work. Boo, boo, boo. All right, welcome. I am here for part 2 with Dr. Marc Hunsaker, Dean of Personal and Professional Development at Berry College. We're carrying on our conversation about debunking college and career myths. Can you just repeat real quick those 3 myths, and then we'll move on to number 4?
Absolutely. Number 1 is the idea that my major equals my career. For the vast majority of people out there, their major will not equal their career. They will be working in a field that is, again, not directly connected to their undergraduate major. First job is my forever job, or the first major I pick will be the major I graduate with. Again, vast majority of people will change their major, change their mind while in school. And then lastly, and the one that's most pervasive is I'm only going to have about 5 jobs after college. And the average number right now is between 10 to 14, significant jobs before retirement. Okay. And so the fourth one, if I may,
yes, absolutely,
is that there is one perfect major or career out there for me. And if I don't know it right now, I'm screwed. Can I say screwed?
Yeah, you can say screwed.
Okay. I'm in trouble. But so as a person who, with a background in career advising and helping students identify good fit jobs, I know what many students don't, which is that there are probably 25 to 30 good fit careers out there for every person. We talked earlier, last podcast, about how many students are limited by an awareness of all the opportunities that are out there. Well, that's exactly what a good career consultant or a career advisor is going to help them understand, is to see how their interests, their skill sets, their work and life values, the preferences they have about a workplace, how all of that fits into a wider range of different careers than they are aware of. And the same thing is true for majors. There's not just one perfect thing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, those of us who have graduate degrees and they aren't the same as our undergraduate degree generally know that, wow, there's a wealth of interests and passion areas that I could continue to explore and see myself investing in. And even more so as you grow and change and life happens to you and your priorities change with it. There are lots and lots of things you can do to have a happy and meaningful life. In fact, one of the things that we are constantly trying to help students understand is that there is more than one way your life could unfold that would be happy and meaningful to you.
As you're talking about that, I'm thinking back to 20-year-old Mark, who we keep referring to in third person. But it reminds me of advice I got when before I was married. It was kind of like, how do I know if this person is the one? Because it's a similar emotional thing of saying, like, this is a big deal. I'm planning on, when I marry this person, I want it to be for life, and that's my goal. So it's a big deal choosing. And the best advice I ever got on that was from a pastor friend that said, you want to know how she's the one? You put a ring on her finger. Once you're married, she's the one.
There you go.
Because you made a commitment. And, and so it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's fine. So we got married. She's the one. Done.
That's awesome. I had a similar pastor friend who, when I had that same question with him, he said, you seem to be really preoccupied with finding the one. Why don't you spend more time trying to become the one? And I was like, oh, you're right.
Oh, that's good advice for any day.
Yeah, right.
Oh man. So, sorry, what are we're talking about? The one job, the one ring to rule them all.
That's right.
Talk us through that idea.
Yeah. So lots of different majors and careers that would be a good fit for students. And in fact, one of my favorite things to ask parents, and this will lead to the last myth, when they come to Barry, prospective students and parents, or they're here at orientation or whatever, is I ask them to, by show of hands, how many of them are still on plan A from 18 years old? And it's usually in a room full of 70 to 100 people, 2 people sheepishly put up their hands. Mm-hmm. And I give them a thumbs up. That's incredible. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. For most of us, that's not the way it goes.
Yeah.
Right? And thank goodness for that. Because what I thought I wanted to do and who I thought I was and the kind of life I thought I wanted to have at 18 is very different than the life I have now that I love and am happy with. And so the most noxious myth of all that really sort of overlays everything that we've talked about is this idea that many students hold that they don't vocalize, but is apparent in a lot of what they do and how they're thinking about things, is that I should have it all figured out by now. And one of my favorite things to do is to help them understand that they can't. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, because we're going to help them figure out how to take a good next step. We're not going to figure out what job number 12 is. Mm-hmm. We're going to help them figure out what a good next step is on their professional journey. Yeah. And that's a different way of preparing a student to have a strong sense of direction, a strong sense of self, a strong sense of purpose, what kind of difference they want to make in the world. I mean, having a good sense of direction for one's life really prepares them to be able to navigate well a career landscape that's going to be constantly changing and a life that's going to be evolving over time. And so I mentioned this in the last episode, but you can see how these different myths chain together as in a series of dysfunctional beliefs that really keeps a lot of students stuck. And it culminates with the idea of I should have it all figured out. You know, if you think that my major equals my career, whatever I pick right now is going to be doing it for the rest of my life, I'm only going to have 1 or 2 things that I do, and there's one perfect thing out there for me, that's a ton of pressure to put on yourself at 18 years old, or even for a parent to imply to a student or expect from a student that they'll have it all figured out. And so one of our favorite things to do is to help students identify and reframe those dysfunctional beliefs to something that aligns more with reality, that ultimately gets them unstuck, that gets them feeling confident and creative about the future, because I think those attitudes are going to serve them far better as they make their way through college and beyond than some of these things that we've talked about so far.
Okay. I was wondering if there was going to be if any of those 5 had to do with parents' expectations. In order to be successful, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or, something. I'm recalling a student that my wife had as a first-year student, and the parent actually told her, "What, you can't get a job with chemistry?" And she's like, "Oh." If I actually got a job in chemistry, yeah. Like, she didn't say it, but she would make more than he did.
And by the way, I'm a chemist.
Yeah, it's like, no, chemists. Google Dow Chemical and just see if they
doing just fine.
Yeah. But parents want the best for their children. They're doing the best with the information they have. Do you have to unpack some of that, or is that just a conversation you don't want to get into?
No, it's definitely a conversation that we try to have with parents. And I would say more often than not, many students are afraid to have those conversations with their parents. And one of the things that we like to help prepare students, especially as they're going home for that first holiday after starting college, and maybe they're thinking about changing their major, or maybe they're thinking about changing their career path from what they came in thinking, is to prepare them to have the deeper level conversation to see where what the parent ultimately wants for the child, which is usually happiness, security, a meaningful life, that those are the things that the student wants as well. And that by picking a career in the humanities, say, with a less direct, clear pathway to a job, but nonetheless able to develop a skill set that's
says the Shakespearean
that's right.
English major.
To be able to equip them to have that conversation to where they can help the parent understand that this is just a different route to the same desired end, and to show where there is the overlap in. I also want to be financially stable. And there is a pathway to that, even by being a person who majors in Shakespeare studies, right? There is a way to do that. But that's also a conversation that students have to be prepared for. And what I have found is that if a student enters into that conversation with a parent, after having talked to some good mentors and advisors, people who work on these kinds of issues, that conversation will generally go much better than the student expects it to. Okay. Because parents are reasonable. Of course they're reasonable, and of course they want what's best for their child. Yeah. And so that is an important part of our work as well.
Gotcha. Love that. I know you have to leave in a few minutes, so we're going to postpone the questions about parallel planning and life design. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And
happy to come back and talk about that more.
Absolutely. I think that would be fantastic.
If you want, can I?
Yeah.
Is it okay? I have a few more minutes, but okay. I can speak to parallel planning really quickly.
Okay.
Because it really piggybacks nicely onto what we've talked about so far.
So, Mark, what is parallel planning?
Yeah, parallel planning is recognizing that for most of us, life is not going to go according to just our first plan A. And so planning a series of different ways that your life could unfold and be meaningful to you. So we generally will do something that comes from the life design materials called Odyssey Planning.
Okay.
And it is asking students to identify 3 different lives that they could live over the next 5 years, 3 different 5-year plans that would be happy and meaningful to them. And each one of those plans has a different theme to it. So we say, all right, let's go ahead and put your plan A down. Let's put the story that you tell today, that you envision your life. Let's go ahead and put that down. But let's also think through, what if that were no longer an option anymore? And not because you failed, but what happens if the world just changed, right? And let's say you wanted to go into human resources and the robots come and there's no more humans in human resources. Now what would you do? That would be different, but still happy and meaningful. And then we will also ask students to identify a wild idea. What would you do if money and status, were not obstacles? If there were no obstacles and you could do anything that you want, everybody you care about thought it would be awesome, and you could make 6 figures doing it, then now what would you do? Would you go, be a yoga instructor in Hawaii and raise, run a home for rescue animals? I don't know. What would it be? What would that wild idea be? And very often what we find is that students' wild ideas are not actually that wild. They oftentimes just lack confidence. Maybe they've never said it outside before. Maybe no one's even encouraged them to think outside the box. Or maybe they go, well, I can't imagine how I would make a living doing that. Well, that's just a matter of resources. Yeah. We can figure that out. We can hack that. We can, And so the parallel planning prepares students for the inevitable changes that will happen, and to not put all their eggs in one basket. And the things like the wild idea encourage them to think about the things that are most important to them. And even if they don't pursue the wild idea as they wrote it down, maybe there's something from that. Maybe it's, I want to live in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Well, they have lots of different jobs in Hawaii beyond yoga, and so sometimes that will feed back into the original plan. So it's a value of beginning to break those assumptions and those limiting beliefs, kind of like the myths that we talked about earlier. So our strong encouragement is to have students develop parallel plans, because it just does prepares them for the whatever life may throw their way. So.
Yeah. I'm glad we took time to do that, because I have probably about 40 questions to follow up with, and I'm just processing that information going as I encounter the business world, and there's a lot of life coaches and professional coaches out there. That is a concept that I have not heard before of hey, let's talk about multiple things that will work. I hear a lot about multiple income streams, but that's I want to take time to unpack that. But we don't have time today. On our follow-up episode, we'll spin the wheel of embarrassing moments because I want to leave time for that. But who is someone that has helped you or supported you in your career? What did they do? And let's thank them by name.
Absolutely. So I would like to thank Dr. Phil Gardner at Michigan State University. He gave me my first start in this field, in the field of career development, professional development. He has been a great mentor to me. He's a real futurist, a strategic thinker. He is a thought leader in our space. And he has given me the opportunity to also do a number of different writing projects, book chapters, and whatnot. And he's just taught me so many of the frameworks that I work with today. I mean, he was the guy that introduced me to life design, for example. And now I'm a facilitator and on the board at Stanford's Life Design Studio. He helped make some of those connections for me. And so whether it's networking or helping to shape the way that I approach this work, he's a person who's helped many people and certainly helped me as well. So very grateful for him.
Love that. All right. So final thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah. So if you or your student is considering Berry College as an option for your college experience, please let me know. Happy to connect you to the right people and talk about the difference that Berry College offers students, and in particular how our emphasis on personal and professional development helps students to make the very most of that college experience and get the very most out of all that they're investing in these next 4 years. They can find me M. Hunsaker, MHUNSAKER at berry.edu. You can also follow Berry, BERRY, CPPD, Center for Personal and Professional Development, on Instagram. And then if you just want to learn more, berry.edu /PPD, if you're particularly interested in my area.
Awesome. Love it. All right. What is the kind of one, not the one, because we know that's a lot of pressure. What is just one final thought you want to leave with our audience?
Figuring out your future is not a math equation with one right answer. It is more akin to an adventure to be lived. And that adventure will take you in places that you may not expect, but a good mentor can help prepare you for the journey.
Love it. Thank you, Marc. My guest today has been Dr. Marc Hunsaker, the Dean of Personal and Professional Development at Berry College, who has expertise in life design, strategy, vocational formation, and a bunch of other amazing stuff. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a review, tell a friend, give us a gold star, or call my grandma. And if you want unforgettable events and training that's fun, like for real fun, get started today at workplaysolutions.com. I know I want that. Boo-boo-boo. We've gone through 2 of those myths. Can you just repeat those 2 real quick? We've gone through 3 of those myths. The speaking and listening don't always happen at the same time. So